Hey everybody, Coldar here. Today we are looking at the Face Clutchers achievement, part of the Lei Shi encounter in Terrace of Endless Spring. And this is a fairly difficult achievement. It requires that all 10 of your raid members be afflicted with the Parasitic Clutch debuff, while then defeating killing Lei Shi. So, to get the debuff, there are a series of small ads that will spawn in the water. You can see one there in the water in front of me, called Parasitoid Sha. And pretty much only one of these will spawn at any given moment, either the left side of the water or the right side of the water. So basically the stairway that you enter this room, there's a smaller set of stairs on either left and right going into the water. And just at the edge of those stairs, somewhere in that pool, will be one of the Sha. And as I said, they spawn pretty much one at a time, but their spawn rate is fairly quick, around 10 seconds or so. Now, if any player gets within melee range of a Parasitoid Sha, and they are unafflicted with the Parasitic Clutch debuff, then that Sha will attach to their face, just like an alien face hugger, and you will get the debuff, and you'll have this Sha attached to you that's attackable. So you can see there's a nameplate above my head, a bunch of other people right now. And you can actually attack either on purpose or accidentally and kill the Sha that's attached to you, and therefore remove the debuff. So while the debuff is on you, all it does is do dot damage to you. It's 22,500 damage per 3-second tick. So not a great deal of damage relative to other damage sources on the fight, but times 10 people, obviously 225,000 damage every 3 seconds is a fair bit. Because of that extra damage, and because the berserk timer of 10 minutes on this encounter on normal is quite lenient, I strongly suggest using 3 healers for this achievement. It will greatly stabilize things, and you won't really need the extra DPS because it's not about burning the boss down. You have to have control, and it's about attrition to get everyone afflicted with this debuff that you want. So, the easiest way to have a new person afflicted is to actually pull one of the Parasitoid Shas up to the platform where the raid is generally located. Now, you can technically jump in the water and just swim past one and it will attach to your face. But this is actually more time consuming and much more chaotic than just pulling them up. So you can see I'm trying to cover the left side throughout this clip, which is fairly short, I apologize, but I basically just shoot a lightning bolt at them or aggro them in some way. And depending on my position, sometimes they won't be able to find the path up top and they'll evade. But you just kind of move closer and closer to the stairs, and eventually they'll find the path that they need to, and then they'll start coming up to you. So they just try to run up to you, but if you are already afflicted, you won't be afflicted by another clutch. So instead, you'll want to instruct another raid member who needs to be afflicted to stand in the path that they're coming up. So as I said, I'm covering the left side generally, and then we have I think a shaman, or elemental shaman, or maybe a warlock covering the right side, doing the same basic thing. So since only one Sha will be active at a time pretty much, and every 10 seconds a new one spawns once you pull the previous one, the other player or myself will call out the side that the Sha is coming up on. So here I would be calling out in voice chat, left side, and you can see our druid there is going over to the stairs and just standing in the left side at the top of the stairs where the path will force the Sha to come up. So then she is now afflicted with the Parasitoid Sha and got the debuff, and then we can call for the next person to get one, and so on. So the actual act of getting people afflicted is fairly simple. The problem is you have to do so, of course, while you're dealing with the rest of the fight. So this is where some of the tactics and just general planning will serve you well. So the first thing you want to do is be absolutely certain that Getaway, the pushback ability that Lei Shi is using right here, is not going to hit you when you are standing on the edge of the platform trying to aggro one of the Sha up top. Because obviously it will push you away immediately, probably off the edge of the platform, and you'll be swimming in the water, aggroing Sha perhaps, and taking a huge amount of damage. And especially if you are not a healer, you're going to probably die because you'll be out of range or line of sight of a healer while that's going on. You also might take extra damage if you're not able to fight against the current. So it's just a bad plan overall. The other factor is that you don't want to have the Sha attached to the raid too early. Since I mentioned earlier, they can be attacked since they have health and it's fairly low value, around 2 million. You don't want them to die prematurely and then just have to get a new one on a bunch of players. So for that reason, you want to delay attaching Sha to your raid members as long as possible, as late into the fight as you can. Of course, this means that Lei Shi will have much higher DPS output because of the lower health mechanics and her gaining haste, and that will make things a little trickier. So again, that's why I recommend 3 healers, because even if one healer is indisposed or doing something else like I'm doing, you still have 2 healers able to cover the raid. And then when one of those healers has to go and collect their Sha, you can trade off and you just have backups basically for safety. So in that sense, our basic plan here that worked pretty well was to wait until after the 3rd set of protected animated protectors, the set of ads, spawn around 40%. Once we kill one of those and in that ad phase, and Lei Shi is just at the end of their 40% phase, then we'll start collecting Sha on players. So the trick here is to not start collecting until you know which of her special phases she's going to do between the ad phases. So once the ad phase was done at 40%, we wait until we know whether it's the getaway or the hide phase. And if it's getaway, we have to get through that phase because we can't stand on the edge, like I said. So instead, we wait until it's the hide phase special or until getaway is done, and then send our 2 players on either the left or the right side to start collecting Sha and bringing them up top for the raid. Between the time of one special phase and the next one, or until we push her over to the 20% threshold, you can generally get about 5-6 Sha out on the raid. So about half your raid you can get in that one period if you do things fast enough. And that's the basic idea. So that once we hit the 20% ad phase, then we only have another 5 or so players that need to be afflicted, and ideally fewer than that. You're probably going to want to prioritize ranged players to get afflicted first, because they will not need to be stacked up on the boss in melee range to do DPS and whatnot. Same with your healers. And therefore, the Sha attached to those players will not take extraneous damage. So, for example, tanks, monk tanks have to do Cake Smash, which is an AE attack for their debuffs, and it's part of their major rotation. And you don't want a bunch of melee DPS having the Sha get hit by that ability, because they're going to die pretty quickly. They have low health. So try to prioritize the players that get the attachment early as your ranged and your healers. And this way the only extraneous damage will be from AE effects during the hide phase, trying to find Lei Shi and break her out. And then in the final stages, you'll want your tanks and your melee DPS to be the final players to get the parasitic clutch buff. So at the very end, once our melee DPS have gotten it, then we just basically have our tanks rotate out after their Lei Shi is taunted off of them, after we've done the final 20% ad phase, which you see here. So at this point we have, it looks like melee DPS, one of our healers, one of our ranged, and then our 2 tanks that need it. So again, 5 players. So we're going to finish off the ranged players first, and then we'll get our melee DPS afflicted, and then we'll finally rotate the tanks in. So just as one tank is getting Lei Shi taunted off them, they'll run out and pick up the Sha, and then once their stack drops from Lei Shi, they'll taunt off of the previous tank, and then the final tank should be the 10th person to get the clutch. Once they have it, then everyone can burn the boss down and finish her off. She should be around 10% or lower at that point. And obviously just be careful you don't accidentally kill the boss early, since if you do, you won't be able to try again the same week. But yeah, that's pretty much it. So it's a little bit difficult achievement. It just takes some planning, like I said, some practice, getting players assigned to their roles, and then just getting used to the damage and transitioning of players moving in and out of position to get the clutch debuff on them. Making sure not to accidentally kill any of the Sha that are active. So communication is really the factor here. Just talk amongst the raid. Everyone knows what they can and should do. So there you see our final tank got the clutch, and now we're finishing the boss off. So that is Face Clutchers. Good luck, and thanks for watching.